I'm Rachel Morgan, 33 years old, and I thought buying my first house would be the start of peace. Instead, it became the reason my own family sued me. Yes, you read that right. The house I worked a decade to afford scraping by on instant noodles, skipping holidays, tracking every dollar was suddenly the centerpiece of a courtroom drama. Why? Because my unemployed sister Brielle wanted a room, and my parents thought it was only fair I give it to her. After all, I'm the responsible one. I always bounce back. That's what they told me right before filing a civil petition to force me into sharing my home. Apparently, being the daughter who planned ahead means forfeiting what I built. Because family helps family, even when one side never lifts a finger. I used to think I was building a life. Turns out I was just building a house they thought they could move into. Before I take you into the full story, what they said, what they filed, what they tried to take from me, I want to know. Have you ever been the one expected to do the right thing while others got bailed out? Hit like and subscribe if you've ever been punished for being responsible. You're not alone. I had just bought my first house. I thought it would be the beginning of independence until my mother asked if my unemployed sister would be getting a room too. The last rays of April sunlight streamed through the wide living room windows, casting soft golden streaks across the hardwood floor. The house still smelled of fresh paint and optimism. A fold-out table stood awkwardly in the middle of the dining area, covered with mismatched plates and pastel napkins that my mother insisted on bringing to add a celebratory touch. The bottle of champagne I bought remained unopened. No one had said congratulations. I walked them through the house, narrating proudly as I showed off the renovated kitchen and the sunlit study. It's not huge, I admitted, but it's mine. The mortgage rate was killer, but 3 bedrooms for one person, Brielle cut in eyes, barely leaving her phone. Must be lonely. My smile froze. I turned toward her, unsure if she was joking, but she didn't even glance up. Just kept scrolling her thumbs, flicking across Instagram stories like my voice was background noise. My mother chuckled, the kind that always came with a warning. We were thinking. She began adjusting the sleeve of her cardigan. Since Brielle's still in transition, maybe she could use the guest room for a while. It would help her get back on her feet. I blinked. What? Gerald, my father, looked up from the recliner he had claimed the moment we arrived. We should talk about expectations. There it was, so casually delivered, like we were discussing dinner plans instead of reshaping the terms of my autonomy. I glanced at Brielle, who was now sprawled on my brand new couch legs, crossed face, impassive. She didn't say a word, just smirked. Linda went on. You've always been the stable one, Rachel. It only makes sense that you'd help your sister with housing. She's still finding her path. Finding her path, I'd been clocking 70-hour work weeks for years, budgeting every dollar, skipping vacations. My path had been built on burnout and overachievement. Brielle's path, from what I'd seen, consisted of yoga poses on beaches she hadn't paid for, and branding gigs that somehow always required rent from someone else. Still, I heard myself laugh. That awful, brittle laugh that filled the silence when I didn't know how to say no. It's not that simple, I managed. I bought this house to start fresh, to have space. Linda exchanged a glance with Gerald. Space is meant to be shared. Family helps family. My jaw tightened. I stared at the unopened champagne, the one I brought thinking there'd be a toast, maybe even a hug. Instead, I stood in my own home being asked to give up a room and more for the sister who'd never lifted a finger for anyone but herself. That night, long after they left Linda with a parting kiss to the air near my cheek, Brielle murmuring something about clearing her schedule, I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching the blanket I hadn't even unpacked yet. My phone buzzed. A message from Brielle. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You know what's right. When the envelope arrived, I thought it was junk mail until I saw the law firm's name. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, still in my gym clothes, sipping from a chipped mug while half watching an old crime show rerun. The envelope sat innocently between a Bed Bath & Beyond flyer and a political postcard, thin and cream-colored with the embossed logo of Holt & Jennings LLP printed neatly in the corner. My stomach dropped. I opened it with trembling fingers. The paper crackled like it knew it was about to break something. Summons and complaint. Plaintiffs Linda Morgan, Gerald Morgan, and Brielle Morgan. Defendant Rachel Morgan. Subject petition for partial ownership transfer and occupancy rights. I dropped it. Literally. It floated to the floor like some cursed leaf. I grabbed the edge of the countertop, breathing hard. My vision blurred. My chest tightened. I pressed the heel of my hand to my sternum like that would stop the wave crashing through me. I'd once borrowed $700 from my mom for emergency dental work, and she made me sit through a 2-hour lecture about financial independence. That same month, Brielle had announced her jewelry startup, and Linda handed her $5,000 with a proud smile. I slid to the floor, cold tile against my legs, phone in my hand, dialed Chloe. She answered before the first ring finished. Rach, I got. Served, I choked out. 20 minutes later, she was at my door with lemon muffins and that no-nonsense look in her eyes. She read the papers in silence, flipping each page like a surgeon inspecting a wound. This is insane, she finally muttered. They're suing you for the house you bought with your own money. She says it's a joint family investment. That they've emotionally supported me. My voice cracked on the word emotionally. Chloe looked like she might combust. We're calling someone. The next morning, I sat across from Angela Holt, a woman with steel gray eyes and hair that didn't dare move out of place. Her office smelled like eucalyptus and quiet war. She scanned the papers quickly, lips pressed into a firm line. They don't have a leg to stand on, she said, finally looking up. But we still have to fight this. Loudly. I blinked. They can't just make this up. They can file it. Courts don't screen for moral decency, only procedure. And unfortunately, this is procedural. A laugh escaped me, dry and desperate. This isn't about the house, is it? Angela leaned back, fingers steepled. This isn't about houses. This is about control. And if you don't fight back now, you'll never stop paying. The words sank like stones. I remembered every passive-aggressive holiday dinner, every forced smile, every moment I'd chosen silence for the sake of peace. Okay, I said. I'll fight. Angela nodded, already typing. We'll draft a formal response today. You'll also start documenting. Every conversation, every message. We're going to expose this for what it is. I walked out of her office with a manila folder under my arm and something strange in my chest. Not quite confidence, but not despair either. Something sharper, clearer. Later that night, while sorting through old emails and texts for anything relevant, my laptop pinged. New message. From Brielle Morgan, aluminaagency.com. Subject title transfer confirmation body, please confirm final date for joint title transfer. They weren't just coming. They thought they'd already won. They weren't just trying to steal my house. They had been planning it for months. Angela's office smelled like jasmine today. Not the calming kind, but sharp and synthetic like a fake comfort. I sat across from her, my phone trembling in my hands as I waited for the iCloud backup to complete. We were starting discovery. She needed everything. Emails, texts, receipts, smoke signals if I had them. Do you remember any direct messages, anything suggesting intent? Angela asked, eyes focused behind rimless glasses. I paused. Linda said something weird in January. We were at brunch. You're not making any big financial decisions without talking to us first, right? I quoted. I thought she was just being mom. Angela gave a tight nod. Let's find out. I didn't want to do this. Digging into years of family chats felt like slicing open an old wound, but deeper. Because this time I wasn't just bleeding, I was seeing the knife marks. By the next morning, the backup had finished. I forwarded the export to Angela, then watched the 3 little dots dance in our shared document as she read. Her silence on the call was louder than shouting. You need to see this, she said. The messages stretched back to early December. In a group chat labeled Morgan HQ, Linda, Gerald, Brielle. Linda Rach is talking about buying soon. Maybe Brielle should position herself near that timeline. Gerald, I can co-sign if needed. Let's create a safety net for both girls. Brielle lol. She won't say no. She always caves. Just wait till she sees the pressure. I leaned back, heart pounding. That wasn't misguided love. That was strategy. Angela continued. 2 weeks later, your parents refinanced their house. Pulled $50,000. 30 went to a new account in Brielle's name. The memo line said, seed capital. My jaw clenched. Then came the kicker. Brielle to Sid, a name I vaguely recognized from Instagram stories. Thinking of registering the title in both names. She won't notice if I word it right. It wasn't just betrayal. It was an orchestrated siege. Angela's voice cut through the rising static in my brain. They're not confused. They're coordinated. I looked at her, something calcifying in my chest. Then I won't be confused either. My voice dropped. Let's go to war. She nodded. I'll file the counterclaim today and notify the court we're seeking full dismissal with prejudice. That means they don't get to try again. I exhaled slowly, like the breath had been lodged inside me for months. Later that evening, curled on my couch with a blanket I suddenly hated. Linda gave it to me last Christmas. I watched the court docket update in real time. The notification lit up my screen like a fuse. New filing motion for dismissal with prejudice, counterclaim for legal costs. The courtroom was colder than I expected, but not as cold as my mother's eyes when she refused to look at me. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I sat behind the polished oak table trying to steady my breathing. The walls were sterile, off-white, and intimidating, and the silence felt heavy, punctuated only by the tapping of keyboards and the occasional squeak of a chair. Across the room, Linda adjusted her scarf with deliberate calm, not sparing me a glance. Gerald sat beside her, his expression unreadable. And Brielle, clad in a beige blazer that looked borrowed, sat farther down, arms crossed, eyes fixed on something in the distance. She looked bored, or perhaps calculating. Angela leaned in slightly. Stay grounded. This is just a preliminary hearing. Nothing is final today. But it didn't feel that way. Judge Helena Price entered, a woman with sleek white hair and sharp glasses. She sat like a blade, everything about her clean, efficient. Her gaze swept the room before she spoke. We're here to address the matter of Morgan vs. Morgan, preliminary considerations only. No decisions will be made today, but arguments and counterclaims will be heard. The plaintiff's attorney, a wiry man with thin lips and an expensive tie, stood first. Your Honor, we submit that our client supported Ms. Rachel Morgan both emotionally and financially during her upbringing, and that she implicitly committed to shared assets, including her recent real estate acquisition. Angela rose smoothly. We challenge the existence of any such commitment, explicit or implicit. In fact, we have evidence suggesting coordinated manipulation to fraudulently obtain ownership. The attorney turned to me. Ms. Morgan, would you say your parents helped you succeed? Angela objected instantly. Relevance. Judge Price nodded. Sustained. Still he pressed. Do you believe moral obligation counts for nothing? I hesitated, but then Chloe's words came back to me. This isn't about winning. It's about remembering you're worth standing up for. I looked him dead in the eye. I believe morality and manipulation are not the same thing. Angela slid a printed email forward. Your Honor, Exhibit C. Brielle Morgan, the third plaintiff, texted a friend, might register the house in both names. She won't notice. That's not moral. That's calculated. All eyes turned to Brielle. She sighed loudly. I never asked for the house. Linda turned sharply. Brielle. But Brielle waved a dismissive hand. They did this. Mom, Dad, this was your thing. You told me Rachel owed us, not me. I was just going along. It wasn't quite betrayal. It was self-preservation. Angela leaned toward me and whispered, She's distancing herself from liability. Smart. My mind reeled. They weren't just fighting me, they were splintering from each other. Judge Price raised a hand. Enough. Before we proceed, I'm ordering both parties to enter formal mediation. Be aware if this case goes to trial, it will be public and final. The word public hung in the air like a threat or a promise. The hearing adjourned. I stood, legs trembling slightly. Angela gathered our documents. Linda brushed past me, still not looking. Gerald's face was pale. Brielle lingered. For a split second, our eyes met, but she turned away without a word. As we stepped into the corridor, a man in a janitor's uniform brushed past and slipped something into my hand. I turned to call after him, but he was already gone. It was an envelope. No return address. Inside a printout of a bank transaction, Gerald Morgan wiring $7,500 to Carver and Leeds LLP, a different law firm. Below it, a note in neat block letters. Not everyone in your family agrees with them. I went into mediation hoping for resolution. Instead, I left knowing I would never call them family again. The neutral facility was designed to look calm, soothing gray walls, a muted fountain trickling in the corner, but it only made the tension more surreal, like putting a bandage on a bullet wound and pretending it was healing. Angela and I sat across from Linda and Gerald at the long, pale wood table. A mediator mid-50s with a practiced half-smile and clipboard poised sat in between like a referee pretending the match wasn't rigged. Linda looked fragile today, eyes rimmed red, voice barely above a whisper. "I just don't understand how we got here," she said. "Rachel, this isn't you. You've changed since you got that job. Since you got the house, it's like money made you cold." Angela didn't flinch. "Let's keep statements productive. If you have a concrete proposal, let's hear it." Gerald cleared his throat. "She needs to think like an adult in the family. We all make sacrifices. That's what we're asking of her." I stared at him. Sacrifices. Like taking out equity to fund Brielle's fourth business failure, like ambushing me during my housewarming with expectations and guilt. The mediator interjected with polite firmness. A suggestion has been drafted. A 60-40 split of the property value, Rachel retains majority ownership, but Brielle is compensated for the displacement, and he looked at the paper emotional distress caused by the severed family ties. My nails dug into my palm. Linda leaned forward, her voice cracking. "We're trying to keep this from becoming uglier than it has to be. Can't you meet us halfway?" I inhaled slowly, feeling the fire behind my ribs rise, but I didn't let it consume me. I kept my voice low. I'm done performing loyalty to people who never earned it. Silence. I stood. Angela opened her mouth, but I shook my head. "We're not signing anything. Not today. Not like this." Linda started to cry. Not loud sobs, but soft, practiced weeping that always used to bend me. But not now. Gerald muttered, "She's throwing her family away over a house." Angela stood beside me. "She's reclaiming what was stolen." We walked out. Outside, the air hit my lungs like cold steel. I didn't realize how shallow I'd been breathing inside that room until the door closed behind us. At home, I barely made it to the couch before collapsing. Chloe was already there. Angela must have texted her. She wrapped her arms around me without saying a word. I broke. The tears came in waves, grief, fury, relief, letting go of the fantasy that they'd ever come around, that they ever saw me as more than a vault to be cracked. After what felt like hours, I wiped my face and pulled out my laptop. I opened the folder with the bank transfer Gerald's secret payment to another law firm, attached it to a motion draft, typed the subject line request for frivolity declaration, plus recovery of legal fees. It was mechanical, clean, like the beginning of a new ritual. Not forgiveness, not revenge, just reclaiming. Just as I hit save, my phone buzzed. "Daniel, heard you stood up for yourself today. Proud of you, Rach. Coffee this week." They expected me to crumble. Instead, I walked into court with everything they thought I wouldn't dare reveal. The Denver District Court loomed larger than before, the sharp edges of the building mirroring the clarity I felt in my chest. My heels clicked against the marble floor with each step, a sound I'd once feared might echo like hesitation. Today, it echoed like resolve. Angela stood beside me, folder tucked under her arm posture as sharp as her cross-examinations. I caught her glance and nodded. No words needed. In the courtroom, the seats were filled. The same judge as before, Helena Price, presided with a look of tired curiosity. She'd seen the theatrics before. Today, she would see something else. Brielle sat in a tailored blazer that didn't fit quite right, tapping her acrylic nails against the table. Linda clutched her purse so tightly her knuckles were white. Gerald stared straight ahead, a statue of defiance. None of them looked at me. Angela rose. Your Honor, we submit documented evidence of financial transfers between the plaintiffs Linda and Gerald Morgan and the defendant's sister Brielle Morgan. These include wire deposits, text messages suggesting coercive strategies, and a pattern of deceptive communication. She clicked the remote. The screen lit up with a series of screenshots. Brielle just. Pressure her a little. She always folds. Linda. We'll say it's only temporary. She's too guilty to say no. Murmurs rippled through the room. Even Judge Price leaned forward. Angela continued, voice level. This case was never about joint ownership. It was about manipulation. The plaintiffs intentionally misrepresented their intentions, relying on familial guilt rather than legal standing. Then she turned to me. With your permission, Ms. Morgan would like to speak. Judge Price nodded. I stood. My hands didn't shake. I'm not suing my family, I began. I'm defending the last piece of self-respect they tried to take. Linda scoffed audibly. Judge Price lifted a hand. Silence returned. I took a breath. All my life, I was the one who did the right things, school job savings. And every time I climbed a step, I was told to look back to drag someone else with me who hadn't even tried to walk. I bought a house to find peace. Instead, I found betrayal planned, rehearsed, and executed by the people who were supposed to protect me. Angela gave a slight nod. I sat down. Then it was Brielle's turn. She was polished at first, charming, contrite, until Angela dropped the final blow. Ms. Morgan, do you recognize this statement? She asked, placing a bank document on the stand. Dated March 3rd. A deposit from your parents for $15,000 2 weeks before the legal action was filed. Brielle's mouth opened closed. It was a gift. To help with rent, Angela tilted her head. Despite the claim in court that you had no living expenses, silence. Even Gerald shifted in his seat. Judge Price tapped her gavel. I've heard enough. She looked at all of us. This court finds the plaintiff's claims to be without merit. The case is dismissed with prejudice. All legal fees incurred by the defendant are to be paid by the plaintiffs. For a beat, no one moved. Then Linda stood up and screamed not words, just raw, guttural fury. Her voice cracked the sterile air, and in it was the sound of a mother not losing a case, but losing control. Gerald reached for her arm, muttering, "Let's go," his face hollow. Brielle didn't rise right away. She looked down at her lap, frozen. I didn't look back again. Outside, the air felt different. Less dense. More honest. That night, Chloe hosted a small get-together at her apartment. Candles, chips, nothing dramatic. Just safety. Daniel was there too, nursing a ginger ale, quiet but steady. He caught my eye, raised his glass slightly. No need to speak. Chloe handed me a blood orange mocktail and grinned. To not crumbling. I took it, lifted it to my lips. Someone clicked a photo me in profile, half lit by warm light. I turned to the camera and smiled. I bought that house to start over. I didn't know I'd have to burn the bridge first. The courtroom fell silent, but her truth echoed louder than any accusation they had hurled. What they built on guilt and manipulation crumbled the moment she chose to speak, not with anger, but with clarity. Justice isn't always swift, but when it arrives, it carves through deceit like sunlight through fog. Like broken glass underfoot, the past may still sting, but she walks forward barefoot, unafraid.